Hola Formula One maniacs, F1 Brake Check is back in Fuego. Today we preview the Spanish Grand Prix. Will it be a dance of victory or a tango of trouble? We'll have another biography of one of the greats of Formula One. Corey will once again try to melt my brain in our Stump the Pundit segment, and we'll discuss the latest news and rumors with our own brand of insight. Grab a scoop of paella and a glass of sangria and grab a seat. F1 Brake Check is go.
Welcome. You are listening to F1 Brake Check, the epic podcast for all things Formula One, where we discuss technology, history, news, and perspective. With your hosts, Scott Vick and Corey Broom.
All right, we're back with F1 Brake Check. My name is Scott. With me, as always, is my intrepid co-host for life, Corey Broom. Corey, how are you doing, sir?
Good. It's been a day. But, the weekend was pretty good. Went out to Denton. It's good. A good time, man. Basically what I did for Father's Day. What about you?
Same. It was very quiet, very low key, washed a bunch of cars. Everybody who knows me even remotely knows how much I enjoy washing cars. So to me, that's not a chore. So got to wash some cars this weekend and then got to eat some steak on Sunday for Father's Day. And otherwise just took it real low key.
Yeah, and then we hung out on Friday.
Yep. Had some really great flatbread pizza, smoked some really incredible cigars, and just generally had a really, really good time.
It was really surprising to see how much better industrial has gotten. You and I have been going there for years now, and it's surprising how much better they've gotten from day one of launch of the bar and the restaurant.
So if you're in the northern part of the Dallas area, definitely check them out. Industrial Cigars in Frisco, Texas. All right, so let's jump into this week's biography. The world of Formula One has seen many legendary drivers, but few have left a mark as indelible as Niki Lauda. Born Andreas Nicholas Lauda on February 22nd, 1949 in Vienna, Austria, Niki's story is one of relentless determination, incredible skill, and an iron will that defied the odds and inspired millions. Niki Lauda hailed from a wealthy family of industrialists and bankers, but his passion lay far from the family's business empire. From a young age, Lauda was captivated by cars and racing, a passion that was neither understood nor supported by his family. Determined to pursue his dream, Lauda faced opposition from his family, who provided no financial support for his racing, but he managed to overcome the money constraints head-on. He took out bank loans to fund his early racing career, a bold move that highlighted his unwavering commitment to himself in his attempt to make a name for himself in motorsports. Starting in the lower formula, he rose through the junior ranks with a series of impressive performances that caught the attention of the racing community. The first of his many big breaks came in 1971 when he joined March Engineering's Formula 2 team. By 1972, Lauda was racing in Formula 1 for the same team, albeit with limited success due to grossly uncompetitive machinery. In 1974, Lauda's fortunes changed dramatically when he was selected by Enzo Ferrari to drive for the eponymous Ferrari F1 team. The Scuderia had been struggling, and Lauda's technical feedback and driving prowess were instrumental in reviving the team's fortunes. His relentless work ethic and meticulous approach to car setup earned him the nickname The Computer. In 1975, Lauda won his first Formula One World Championship, showcasing his dominance with 5 race victories. His methodical style, combined with his raw speed, made him a formidable competitor. However, it was the following year that would define Lauda's career and his legacy. The 1976 season is etched in the annals of Formula One history, not only for its dramatic championship battle, but for Lauda's horrific crash at the Nürburgring. On August 1st, 1976, during the German Grand Prix, Lauda's Ferrari swerved off the track, hit an embankment, and burst into flames. Trapped in the burning wreckage, Lauda inhaled toxic fumes and suffered severe burns before being pulled out by fellow drivers. Suffering severe burns to his face and head and damage to his lungs, Lauda slipped into a coma. A priest was brought in to administer last rites. Yet in a display of almost superhuman willpower, Lauda made an astonishing recovery. A mere 6 weeks after the accident, still bandaged in an immense amount of pain, he returned to racing at the Italian Grand Prix. His determination and bravery left the world in awe, and he finished the season just 1 point behind James Hunt, his rival, and the eventual champion. The rivalry between Niki Lauda and James Hunt is the stuff of legends. Hunt, the charismatic and flamboyant British driver, nicknamed Hunt the Shunt, was the antithesis of Lauda's calculated and disciplined approach. Their contrasting personalities and driving styles made for one of the most compelling narratives in the sport's history. It inspired countless books and even a critically acclaimed feature film. Their fierce competition came to a head in the 1976 season, culminating in Hunt's narrow championship victory. Despite their on-track rivalry and despite the narrative told by the media, Lauda and Hunt shared a mutual respect and a surprising off-track camaraderie. At one point, while they were racing in the lower formulas, they were even roommates. Their relationship was immortalized in the 2013 film Rush, which vividly depicted their dramatic and emotional on-track battle. Despite his serious demeanor and methodical approach, Lauda had a sharp wit and a good sense of humor. One of the most humorous anecdotes from his career involves an incident with his helmet. After his crash at the Nürburgring, Lauda's helmet had to be specially designed to accommodate his injured head and sensitive skin. During one race weekend, Lauda found his helmet uncomfortably tight. Frustrated, he quipped to the helmet manufacturer, "I need a helmet, not a vice." The helmet technician, trying to alleviate the pressure, suggested that perhaps Lauda's head had grown. Without missing a beat, Lauda retorted, "Of course it has. I've just been through hell and come back a genius." The room erupted in laughter, a testament to Lauda's indomitable spirit and ability to find humor even in the direst of circumstances. After winning his second title for Ferrari in 1977, Lauda's career saw a dip when he joined the struggling Brabham team, which saw moderate results. His one and only outing in the revolutionary BT 46B fan car, along with a win in Italy the same year, highlighted his tumultuous time with the Brabham team and saw his first retirement from F1 in 1979. His career enjoyed a renaissance when the McLaren team talked him out of retirement in 1982. He won his third world championship in 1984, narrowly beating his teammate Alain Prost by half a point, which still remains the closest margin of victory in Formula One history. Lauda retired for good from racing in 1985, leaving behind a legacy of 3 world championships and 25 Grand Prix victories. After retiring, Lauda continued to influence the sport he loved. He served in various executive roles within Formula One, including as a consultant for Ferrari and a non-executive chairman for the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team. Additionally, he founded Lauda Air, a successful airline that he later sold to Austrian Air, who used the company as a charter service. Niki Lauda's life was a testament to the power of resilience, intelligence, and passion. His remarkable comeback from near-fatal injuries, his storied rivalry with James Hunt, and his contributions to Formula One, both on and off the track, cemented his status as one of the greatest figures in the sport's history. Lauda passed away on May 20th, 2019, but his legacy lives on. He is remembered not only for his racing prowess, but for his courage, his wit, and his unyielding determination. Niki Lauda's story is one of overcoming adversity, pushing boundaries, and inspiring future generations to strive for greatness, no matter the odds.
I didn't know that him and James Hunt were actually close, that they knew each other before the races, and that they had a healthy respect. Because, just watching the movie and everything like that, you think that, you could tell that there was some level of friendship, but you just felt that, at least watching the movie, that they were just banging heads all the time because they were so different. That's interesting to find out.
It truly was. They did very much dramatize their rivalry for the movie. They really were great friends, and they had just tremendous amount of respect for each other, even though their personalities were so different mostly. But at the same time, like I said, a lot of people didn't realize just how witty and what a great sense of humor that Lauda had.
Right.
All right, so it's time that Corey is going to destroy my brain matter and leave me in a pool on the floor in our Stump the Pundit section. So, Corey, what do you got for me this week?
All right, so kind of all over the board. Our last race in Canada, we saw that George Russell and Max Verstappen had the same time, 1:12. Can you name another time in history that multiple drivers had the same time in qualifying?
Yes. It was I want to say it was either 97 or 98, may have been 99. I'm a little fuzzy on the years.
Okay.
But we had not 2, but 3 drivers that qualified at exactly the same speed. You had Jacques Villeneuve, Michael Schumacher, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen all qualified down to the 1,000th of a second at the same time.
Exactly.
watching that qualifying, and just my mind just melted because they had only started tracking the times down to the thousandth of a second, I think a couple years earlier.
Who holds the record for winning an F1 Grand Prix from the furthest spot from the back of the grid all the way to actually winning it? Who holds that record? And what spot was he in?
I'm just going to admit that I don't know. I have a couple suspicions of who the driver may have been, but the position to the win, that I'm not even going to even fathom a guess because
Okay.
I don't know. But my first instinct says Lewis Hamilton, but I have a sneaking suspicion that's not it.
It was John Watson, 1983, and it was the United States Grand Prix West. And he came back from 22nd on the grid.
Wow.
Racing from McLaren.
And you said that was
Crazy.
what year?
1983.
83. Okay. So that would have been about the time I started watching Formula One. So, okay, I can understand why I didn't know that one.
Longest race. So what is the longest race in F1 history?
I don't remember what year it was, but I want to say it was 2007, 2008, somewhere in there. And it was the Canadian Grand Prix, which came in at a little over 4 hours because they had a very extended red flag situation, which extended out the time. And so that by the time they finished running it, it was like 4 hours and I want to say 4 minutes or something silly like that.
It's so crazy that you remember this stuff. Yeah, it was the Canadian Grand Prix. 2011 is the year. It was won by Jenson Button, and you were right on with the time. 4 hours, 4 minutes.
And in that race, Jenson Button made 5 pit stops.
Yeah.
And made a pass on the last lap to win. He had an accident in it, ended up knocking off his front wing when he tangled with Lewis Hamilton, his teammate.
So out of that race, there's a new rule that the FIA instituted. Do you know what that rule is?
I want to say that it was a rule about the maximum amount of time a red flag can be in place before they either cancel the race or they postpone the race to another day.
Close. So the rule has been tweaked to where it's now a 3-hour time limit from start to end, no matter what.
Okay. Which would make sense.
Yeah.
Right. I know that under normal situation that once the green flag falls, barring a red flag situation, I do know that there is also a 2-hour limit.
And that's it for Stump the Pundit.
All right, then. So let's move on to our news, rumors, and our preview of the Spanish Grand Prix. First rumor that we have to talk about as far as the driver silly season is that we got the announcement that Ollie Beerman will drive in FP1 this weekend in Spain. According to the Daily Mail, that this is basically Ollie's last audition, if you will, and that it's more or less a foregone conclusion that he will be taking over Nico Hülkenberg's seat at Haas next year.
That's going to be exciting, and K-Mag is going to have to be on his game if they keep him.
Yeah, there's also a lot of rumors swirling right now that K-Mag is pretty much out and that they're looking at a couple of other drivers. I don't know which driver, but supposedly some driver that was coming in with like a $30 million sponsorship package, and Haas basically said, nope, we want someone with experience. We don't want someone with money, which I thought was really, really surprising.
Yeah, really, because you would think that they would want money right now, at least. That's interesting that they're more focused on drivers. And that's another sign of Gene Haas taking over, and he's more concerned with the drivers versus the business side of it.
I think definitely Haas is focusing much more on drivers like Ollie Beerman, who have great speed, that I think that they want a driver who's going to be able to help develop the car much more.
Yeah. Right.
But then again, I think that if you're going to have a driver who's going to help develop the car, I really think that K-Mag would definitely be a good choice. So let's hope that, like you said, if K-Mag's on his game, that maybe he will be able to take and get to keep his seat for next year.
I hope so.
On to the next item. So we've got more rumors swirling around that Antonelli is literally on the verge of being granted a super license by the FIA. When Max Verstappen joined Formula One at 17, the FIA put in a rule saying that any driver, in order to be granted a super license, from then on out had to be at least 18 years old. And there was earlier this season, there was a number of people clamoring to say, no, Antonelli is ready. We need to give him a super license. And the FIA, when they published their latest update to the sporting regulations, they very subtly put a clause in the regulations that said that at the FIA's discretion, that they could grant a super license to someone who was 17, who had shown that they had the skill and the acumen to successfully compete in Formula One, that could happen. And so there is rumors swirling around pretty heavily around the paddock that they are going to grant Antonelli his super license, and that he may make an appearance at Williams as early as the later part of this season. That now, whether or not that means that Logan Sargent is going to be out at Williams for the rest of the season, or if it may be one of those things where, kind of like what they did with Sargent at Melbourne, when they only had one car available and they put Albon into Logan Sargent's car and Sargent had to sit out. So your thoughts, well, on him getting his super license, and on the thought of him possibly getting Logan Sargent's seat for at least one or two races this season?
As much as I complain about the FIA, I'm going to complain about them a little bit more. You can't change the rules because of somebody that you want in the sport. The rules are there. You set them because of whatever reason. I'm going to say Max Verstappen, but you put them in there for whatever reason you wanted it. It's in there. And just because now Mercedes has somebody that they want to bring in from the juniors, that doesn't mean that you can just, oh, well, we're going to change it this one time. No, that's not how it works, or that's not how it should work. So I would like to see him in the seat, but again, I don't think that you should change rules just on a whim. As far as Logan goes, I think that it's either you go in full force with him and you take him by the hand and you're mentoring him and you bring him along, good or bad, or let him go. He can go on to other racing series, whatever. But if you're going to do that to him, where sometimes he's in, sometimes he's out, no, cut him loose. If he's not good enough to drive for you full time, he's not good enough to drive for you. Let him go. That's my opinion.
I'm going to disagree with you about the changing of the rules just to bring Antonelli in. There's a lot of people that feel like he is a generational talent, very much like Max Verstappen. Sure. And to hold him back just simply because of his age, even though he is already so accomplished in the junior formulas, and he has already shown such great ability changing the rules. I really didn't agree with it when they made the Max Verstappen rule anyway, because also there's a lot of people that don't realize that they also have a clause in there that you can't even get a super license if you don't even have a driver's license. And in most European countries, you have to be at least 18 in order to even get a driver's license. So Antonelli is only 17. He's not even legally able to drive a car in most European countries.
Exactly.
I do agree that 18 should kind of be like the target age, just to make sure that the driver has maturity. But when you have certain talent that has been displayed, just because they haven't met that chronological number, I definitely think that it should be allowed if and only if, at the sole discretion of the governing body, says yes, he has the talent, he has the ability, let's go ahead and grant him a super license. That I do disagree with you on. Now, as far as taking over from Logan, no, I think that is definitely the wrong thing. Logan has that seat. Logan is starting to show real promise. Yeah. Don't take that away from him right now. Let Logan continue in his seat for the remainder of the season. Right. If you want Antonelli to get that experience, Lewis is already on his way out anyway. Lewis is a 7-time world champion. If Lewis misses 5 or 6 FP1s this year because they're putting Antonelli in the seat for him to be able to take and get that experience, do that.
Yeah.
Let Antonelli have more FP1 running to get him experience, because we'll talk about it here in a minute of where we think the driver carousel is going to wind up anyway, that I don't think that it's the right thing to do. I think that I definitely think that Logan needs to be allowed to finish out the season. Now, part of that may just be me being a biased Yank and wanting to see another Yank do well in Formula One. With the news about Ollie Berman, with the news of Antonelli, let's go ahead and do some speculation on where we think the driver carousel is going to end up at the end of this season, or even into the off season, depending upon how things shake out. First of all, let's look at what we already know. We know that there are no seats available at Red Bull. They just locked in Perez for another 2 years. There's no seats available at McLaren. We've got one seat available at Mercedes. And my speculation is that I don't think that Antonelli is going to go to Williams. If they do end up yanking Logan out of the car and putting him in for a few races this season, I don't see him being there next season. I see him being a teammate to George next year. That's Mercedes. So I think it'll be Russell and Antonelli at Mercedes for next year. We already know that it's going to be Leclerc and Hamilton at Ferrari. So those 8 positions, we already know, well, with the exception of the Antonelli one, we already know the top 4 teams, those 8 spots are more or less all sewed up.
Yep.
We also know that at Aston Martin, we've got Fernando and Lance are going to be there, even though we've kind of speculated that maybe Lawrence Stroll would be willing to cut his own son out of the team. I've kind of changed my tune on that I think that as long as Lance wants to drive for Aston Martin, Lawrence is going to make sure that he has a seat.
Yeah.
So the next one that we can speculate about is Sauber. My thought is that it's going to be Hülkenberg and Sainz. I have a sneaking suspicion that Sainz is looking at the future. He's going to want a longer-term deal. So he's going to want to sign for Sauber so that he can be there as part of Audi and their developmental efforts and going into the 2026 season. Your thoughts?
I would hope that he wouldn't go to Williams. I would hope that he would go to Sauber or Audi, as it were. And I just think that that's going to be a much better place for somebody of his talent. Selfishly, there's a seat there that I want somebody else to take. There at Williams.
So speaking of Williams, so my thought is we already know that Albon has signed a long-term deal that's going to see him through well past 2026. I think it was speculation was 2027, 28, somewhere in there, which I definitely see happening. I definitely think that Williams is really hopeful that the new engine regulations, that Mercedes is going to nail it again. They're going to quickly be closer towards the sharp end of the grid. But I think that we just talked about Logan finishing out the season. I think that barring some really weird outcome, I don't see Logan being in that seat next year. And I really think that with Sainz taking the other seat at Sauber, that I see that Bottas will fit in perfectly for his return to Williams.
Yeah. That's exactly where I was hoping he would go. Yeah. Same.
Yeah. So that leaves Alpine. We already know that Ocon's out at the end of the season. We know that Gasly is in. There's been no official announcement made, but I think we can safely assume that Gasly is going to get at least a 1 year, if not more, contract extension to stay at Alpine. So who does that put into that second seat at Alpine?
I don't think it's anybody that's currently on the grid. I think they're going to pull from FP2, FP3, somebody else.
Unfortunately, because of the weather and everything, we didn't really get to see Jack Doohan, which is one of their junior drivers, but he's probably number 1 on the depth chart as far as the Alpine Driver Academy goes. I have a sneaking suspicion that we're going to see him probably in another FP1 later on this year. So that leads us on to next to Haas. So we've already talked about how we think Ollie Behrman's going to be in the seat next year that's being vacated by Hülkenberg when he goes to Sauber/Audi. Speculation is that they're maybe looking at another driver who is currently on the grid. So, there has been speculation that Ocon may be the one that gets that seat, but I really don't see him fitting in very well at Haas. So I really think it's going to either be K-Mag or another driver that maybe isn't in Formula One, but is in one of the other top tiers, who's on the outside trying to get in right now. That's one of the few seats that I don't really have a solid grasp on who might be in that second seat next year.
Yeah, right.
So the last one we have to talk about then is Racing Bulls. We're already seeing that Yuki Tsunoda got his contract extension, so he will be there for next year. I really think that Ricardo is out the door, and I really think that Liam Lawson will be Yuki's teammate for next season.
Yeah. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree, because the thing is, you see more Liam taking lead, as far as you see a lot more of media of him, and you see a lot more of him in general, whereas before it was 100% Ricardo, and now it's kind of a split between him and Ricardo now. So it's at least, who knows, reading tea leaves and all, Danny could be signed for another year, but the fact that he still doesn't have a contract and Yuki does, that's fairly telling that,
Yeah,
it's time to part
I
ways.
definitely think so. Let's move on to previewing this weekend's Grand Prix in Barcelona at the Circuit de Catalunya. First question is, Corey, who do you think is going to go well this weekend?
My two, I am going to go with number one is going to be Ferrari, and very close to that is McLaren.
Yep. You think that Red Bull's going to be behind the 8 ball again this weekend?
On this track, yeah, I certainly see it. As much as they struggled on Canada and even the last couple of races as well, I really see that Ferrari, they don't want a repeat of Canada. So I don't see them falling back behind like they did. Fred's already been very public about saying this this is not going to happen again. And I know the drivers are very much looking forward to it as well. I mean, it's Sainz's home race, so he's going to be very much gunning for that top position. McLaren wants that spot badly. I definitely see them hitting it hard as well.
It'll probably be a situation where McLaren's going to downplay how well they think they're going to go, and then they're going to come out and they're just going to blow everybody's doors off. Yes, I think it'll be another great weekend for McLaren. I do think that Ferrari will definitely have a bounce back. I still see Red Bull maybe having just a tiny bit of an edge. So yeah, so I definitely think those three are definitely going to be definitely at the time of the speed charts all weekend long, and especially come qualifying and race day.
Exactly.
Who do you think is going to have a bad weekend? Not going to be as fast this weekend.
So not as fast. Again, I'll say Red Bull. I think they're going to have some struggles this race, but other than that, it's going to be your typicals. Alpine, Sauber, I think aren't going to do very well. Who do you think is not going to go very well?
I definitely agree with you on the Sauber front. Now, I thought I read, now don't quote me on this, but I thought I read somewhere that Sauber was bringing a big raft of upgrades to Spain. Depending upon how those upgrades work out, if that is indeed the case, Sauber could surprise. They're not going to be my surprise, but the potential is there. I don't think that Alpine practice and qualifying trim, they're not going to look very good. Now, race trim, they might surprise, but I don't see that happening. I think that it's going to be another tough weekend. This is another track that I think that because of the high speed sections of it, that I think that Williams will be solidly in the midfield this weekend.
Yeah, it'll be interesting though to see what those upgrades will do. Hopefully they can increase their pit performance.
Yeah, absolutely. So who's going to be your surprise this weekend?
My surprise, I'm going to go with Racing Bulls.
Actually, your head and my head are exactly in the same place. That I think Yuki is going to, as we talked about last week in Canada, he had a mistake, which happens to even the best drivers, that dropped him out of the points, which was only the second time this season that he's been out of the points. I think Yuki is definitely going to want to make up for that. So I'm really hoping that if Danny Rick has some confidence in the car this weekend, I definitely see them, being a big surprise. But it could be a surprise in the other direction though too, that if Danny Rick comes out and takes a step back in his performance this weekend.
I hope not. God, man, just for him.
Yeah. I want to at least see him finish out this season.
Agreed.
To finish up, who do you think is going to be on the podium this weekend?
Going with Norris, Leclerc, and I will say George Russell.
Wow. Okay. So that's wow. That's a bold one. I saw another stat this week that I also was not aware of, that well, actually, it's two stats about McLaren. Is one, the McLaren pair is the only two cars to finish every single lap so far this season. Also, they are the only two drivers to have scored points in every single race this season.
No kidding. Huh.
Yeah, which that surprised me because I thought there was one where Piastri was out of the points, but apparently not. My podium for this weekend, I'm going to go with Piastri number 1, Norris number 2, and Sainz number 3.
Nice. Okay. Very cool. I like it.
So,
yeah.
Because I'm like you, I definitely think that Ferrari's looking for a bounce back after the debacle at Canada. Yeah. Fred's going to make sure that that happens. Another quote that I saw this week that was really, really cool. Jean Alesi, former Ferrari driver, was actually quoted. Fred Vasseur reminds him very much of what John Todt did when he first came to Ferrari. And John Todt laid the groundwork that led to the utter dominance of Ferrari with Michael Schumacher in the early 2000s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That would be impressive.
So I really do think that Fred's laying that groundwork, and I definitely think that they're definitely going to have a bounce back weekend. And I think that, like you said, this being Carlos Sainz's home race, I think that if the McLarens falter, he's going to be there to pounce. He's going to have something to prove this weekend.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I definitely think he's going to be on the podium. It's just a matter of whether he's first or third. Yeah, I think it's gotcha. One or the other.
All right.
All right, so are we ready to wrap it up?
We are.
Okay, so Corey, go grab me a cerveza because I am parched and I'm done talking. Join us next week when we'll break down all of the news from the Circuit de Catalunya. We'll have a history lesson and more trivia to stump this presenter. So until next time, he's Corey, I'm Scott. We are the pundits of F1 Brake Check. Let's go!
Thank you for listening to F1 Brake Check. If you have enjoyed what you heard, don't miss a single episode by hitting that subscribe button in your favorite podcatcher, or you can watch the video version on YouTube. Help us grow by sharing us with your friends and fellow F1 fans. You can contact us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok and X at F1 Brake Check. Our website is f1brakecheck.com, where you will find links to all our content. We value your passion and your feedback, so please take a moment to review our podcast. Your reviews help us grow and improve, and it means the world to us. Share your thoughts, rate us, and let us know how we can make the show experience even better. F1 Brake Check is a production of Brake Check Media. For your hosts Scott Vick and Corey Broom, until next time, keep yourself inside track limits, and try not to pitch it in the kitty litter.